Desktop audio, make sure my mic audio is up. All right, cool. I'll hit start recording. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with episode 75 of Zed Daily, and I have Lacy from Glue Racing with us today. How you doing, Lacy?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm good. So before we get into Zed Run, I wanted to talk about your crypto journey. Like, when did you first start buying into crypto?
For Zed. Literally, that was my first exposure ever. Otherwise, I was like, nah, I think I bought maybe Doge on Robinhood before that, but never dipped my toe into crypto.
So how'd you discover Zed?
I was over actually in Top Shot, and there was a guy named Kenny that was like, you have to check out these horses. These horses are awesome. And Top Shot was boring, right? Like, okay, so you buy a moment and then what? Nothing. So I like games. And so I went over to Zed and I was like, oh, this looks like fun. And maybe I could win some money. I didn't for a while, but that's how I got exposed to Zed.
Did you get in during like drop times, or like what was the state of Zed when you first bought your first horse?
The breeding barn had literally been closed for just a few days, maybe a week. So that was April of last year. So what you could buy was what was on the market, and I bought a UU, and it ended up being glue, but that's the environment I came into, was Roy Drazier and all this stuff.
So you're going UU. These were bred horses, or you went UU Genesis?
No, I was small fry budget,
Hmm.
man. Like $100, what can I get? Because that was still a big deal for something I knew nothing about. So
So did you start with the name Glue Racing, or after you had that first horse, did you name the stable Glue Racing?
no, my first stable was Valkyrie Racing, but I quickly everything I branded was basically glue racing because my first horse was literal glue. So
What was the name of your first horse?
I named it Agile Dancer. And back then we had no hardly any stat sites. I ran her 60 times before I realized she was straight up glue. And we only had paid racing back then. So I
Hmm.
probably, I spent like $150, I don't know, racing her. And then I was like, So then I went to like one of the new stat sites and it said her odds were like 45. I was like, oh, there's your sign.
I've heard like the you could only get odds in that time either through going in Discord or some other site. So what site were you going on to find these odds?
I think it was called ZStats.run or something like that. They don't exist anymore. It was well before, it was before KYH and Haku and all those guys.
Okay. So you get your first horse. What did racing look like? Could you enter as much races as you want? How long did it take for the race to actually run? Like what was the racing system looking like at this time?
It was all paid racing with a scattered free race. And back then, you could enter three paid at one time and one free. So you could literally have your horse in four races at once. And you could race all day, every day, which I did.
Would you like to see some of that like brought back now, or do you like the current implementation of stamina and 9 races every, what is it, 12 hours?
Yeah, it's basically eight or nine, and then it's 12 hours. I think stamina helped limit the amount of good horses that were running all the time. That was an issue, back in May when, yeah, I was running all day, every day, but so was Main Event, Moonlight Graham, good horses that were just dominating. So it kind of suffocated paid racing a little bit. So you
Mm.
just started to see good horses. So stamina definitely helped with bringing out the more less competitive horses and allowed them to have a chance.
It
So,
opened the door for other horses
yes.
to run. Fair
Yeah.
enough. So you get your first horse, and it's a glue horse. Like, how does the game plan change from here? Like, what did you do next as like a to upgrade your stable?
Well, by then I kind of knew what to look for as far as odds now that I had an odds site. Um, and I just basically went to, there was an old site like Matic. Was it Matic? I can't remember. It was before they moved back to OpenSea. That was the seller site. And I just every day I would look for what my price point was and kind of what I was looking for. And then blue powder came up for like zero point zero 0.06 ETH. And I just bought him right away. And that ended up being a Saga Bolton offspring. He's not a killer, but at the time, I could race him 40, 50 times a day and not lose my butt in money.
Right.
So that was the beginning of me feeling confident enough to put my money into Zed. So I started just at that point, I invested. I think then the drop came and I bought 3 horses on that drop. And then I just started snowballing my money in.
Right. So that when you bought this, what was the name of the horse again? The second one?
Blue powder.
So when you bought him, was he already like raced a bunch, or was he just named and unraced?
He had 2 races. Bun Rue had owned him, and I think it was just 2 races he had.
And was it the odds that gave you the confidence to go and buy him? Did he or she have low odds in those first 2 races?
Yeah, I think not super low, maybe 11. I don't know, something around there, but much better than 45. So, yeah. And the price point was still good for being a beginner.
All right. So you get that horse, and then you get your Genesis horses. Did you, when you got those Genesis horses, did you look at that more as like a breeding play, an investment play, or just looking for those horses to be racers?
All three. I mean, I think at some point we're all looking for an unraced horse to be a racer when we scratch it off, whether it's a Genesis or not. None of them ended up being racers. We were all waiting for breeding to reopen, and Genesis is supposed to be the best. So I was obviously holding on to them. I had bought one one boy and 3 girls, I think. And so my strategy obviously was just to have him stud the other 3 girls. And yeah, and an investment. I don't know if I really looked at it as an investment then, but eventually when I ended up buying an Act Genesis, that was an investment. So
So what's the story behind the Knack Genesis? Did you just feel like you needed to have access to like the top tier blood, or like top tier horse in the game?
yeah, I mean, it got to the point where I was buying higher tier horses. And back then, a Z4 Knack leg was going to cost you 0.70 UU.
Mm.
And I bought 3, I think. And I'm like, there's got to be a cheaper freaking way to do this because and they weren't great. They weren't, you know, stone cold killers on the track. So I'm like, there's got to be a cheaper way. So I did the math and I said, if breeding reopens and I can sell X, Y, and Z, and I can take this amount of time to recoup my investment, then it'll be worth it. So I decided just to bite the bullet and do that.
And how much in ETH did it cost at this time?
I paid 60.
6 ETH. And
Yeah.
has the market's dipped, but the Genesis have held their value pretty well. Has that what number was it, a Z2 or a Z1?
It was a Z2.
Okay. Do you know what the current prices are on those?
It's pretty comparable. The males are going for about 5.25, I think, is floor. The females are probably what, 6 or 7. Z1s are to me the ones that have really tumbled down in price because now I'm looking. I just ended up selling that Z2 female, but now I'm holding that because I'd like probably to get a Z1 if I can find the right Z1. So
When you say
just
right Z1, are you looking for like a breeding one, a floor one, or like maybe a tournament competitor? Like, what would you
a
like to
little bit
see
of
for one?
everything.
Okay.
I mean, because I ended up buying a Z2 Next Stallion after I bought the female. I still have him. Um, but I would like to get a female that I can breed. But if she can perform at least in daily tourneys too, that would be nice because right now I would be breeding for myself, right? The market's kind of stagnated a little bit. So, and then maybe I could breed some awesome horse, but we'll see.
I like it. Though the Genesis, like Genesis anything, are a great play now because they don't get hit by that breeding decay. So, and we were kind of talking about it before stream, but they had the bug with the breeding update, and some horses had decay. And so, do you want to talk about like what breeding decay would look like once it actually hits the system?
Well, I had a few horses I bred that obviously something was not right because I had bred them before prior to the update. And none of them, I don't think I've ever bred horses that are straight up 12th, 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 11th, 12th. And I had 2 or 3 turn out like that. And looking back, when they came out and said it was breeding decay had been applied to certain horses, the stallions for those offspring, if breeding decay was applied retroactively, they'd be in breeding decay. So to me, I don't know if that's a first tier, but if that's first tier and your offspring are straight up 12th place horses, Genesis just got a big boost in value. And because who's going to breed past the first level of decay if your horse is just going to be a 12th place finisher?
Right. And it's kind of scary, right? Because like if you have a legendary stallion, you have 8 months to breed something good because once you hit that tier 2, like we see what the state of decay will look like, and it's not pretty.
No, I mean, if that's the first tier, that's scary because what's beyond the first tier? How do you get worse than 12th place?
Right, unless they just have like a 12th place tournament or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that'd be a good investment of your money still
Right.
to breed just for that purpose. But
So you touched on tournaments. We used to have the weekly tournaments to where we would have to race 25 times, and then we had the grand finals. Did you like those over the dailies, or do you like the dailies over the weekly tournaments?
um, I liked the weeklies because I could shoot out all my races in 2 or 3 days and then forget about it for the other 4 days and do my thing and live
Mm-hmm.
my life. Now I feel a little bit chained to Zed Daily. Not that that's a bad thing. I do like daily races. I tournaments. I do like just running 5, hopefully, and keeping them in. And I do have a better chance of getting them into dailies. I didn't get nearly as many into the weekly tournaments. So it's a love-hate relationship.
Fair. And we don't have grand finals now, so you don't have to have a horse that will have to run the whole gambit at the end. Like you just stick to your distance funnel. If you're good there, you just hope that you get those good runs in quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals.
Right. And you hope that the horse you qualified can do well, especially if it's only 1,000 or a 14-meter horse, a 1,400-meter horse, because they're always sticking in a 1,200. And if you don't have a 1,200-meter horse, you're dead in the water. So you wasted your time. But I think that'll be changing, they've said. So
I, it only makes sense for them to change it, right? Because they lock it down to only the 12, 18, and 24-meter horses. If they change it up a little bit, it opens the door for so much more horses that maybe they're really good at 1,000, but not so good at 1,200.
Right. And they're huge proponents of wanting all horses to have utility and value. And if you look at the C1 Premier Cup, those horses are going to be running every distance in the funnels. So it's obviously doable.
So when you approach these daily tournaments, are you sticking in your class, or do you approach it like I need a down class on some days so I'm more competitive in tournaments, or do you just race them up as high as they go and just try and qualify from there?
I was trying to do that before the reset. And then after the reset, everybody just ended up in weird places. So, and I feel like everybody else's horses ended up in places they didn't belong either. So became a little harder to down class, and it just got tiresome too. So I don't down class nearly as much as I did. I am more likely to move on to a new horse and let that one just sit for a while.
Right. Like I can't bring myself to down class either. Like I never knew how much I respected arbitrage until I tried to downclass a horse, and I'm like, man, this is just so mind numbing. I don't know how they do this to like a perfect tee to keep a horse in that certain class, bring it down. I'm like, man, it seems like
Yeah,
it would be easy, but it takes a lot of time, and it's just so mind numbing for me.
it's a job at that point. It's not like you do it because it's fun. It's your job, you know.
Right.
I still like this to be somewhat fun. So if I can't stomach doing it, I just say forget it. I move on.
Right. I'm with you. So how do you approach this game day to day? Like do you wake up, start racing? Do you race in the afternoons? Is it like a 24-hour thing? Like how much time are you putting in, and like how do you approach the game from the start of the day till the end of the day?
I pretty much am eating breakfast at the computer. I start my day because either I'm checking up on horses I've gotten in the night before for that daily tournament and seeing if I have to run anybody back in. Right now, I'm also have five I'm trying to keep in for C1 Premier Cup. So I start running their paid races, especially since paid racing was really bad for about a week and a half. And then I run a lot of the day, but then I multitask too, like between Twitter or whatnot. I'm multitasking, but I'm in an office. It's a job.
What does your family think about it? Do they think you're crazy for digital horse racing all day, breeding?
um, Nobody besides my husband really knows what I do. And he can't even spell Ethereum, so he just is like, "Did you win any money today?" And I'll tell him, and he's like, "Okay." That's all he cares about. So
Money talks.
yeah, he doesn't. I mean, I'll tell him about, oh, I'm in this tournament, tournament, or I'll do this and that, and he's like, just tell me the bottom line. That's about it. So
I've learned that as well. Like I'll tell my mom like, "Hey, I won a tournament," and but she's just like, "Okay," and I'll be like, "I won $600." She's like, "Oh wow, like that's interesting," and I'm like,
yeah,
"Okay,
yeah, you put it into monetary, things, and then people like pay attention.
yeah, 100%." So we saw Zed before horses would be ranked. Like if it was a Z2, it would just automatically go to class 2, and then they dropped Discovery on us. How do you feel about Discovery?
Discovery was bad. That three times multiplier was very punitive. Obviously, they've lowered it to two times, but that's still punitive because when I put some of these decay horses through Discovery and they got straight up like 9 12s and 1 11th, they still ended up almost in C4.
Hmm.
That and that's with the two times multiplier. So I really think the multiplier is still punitive because that horse really should have been in C6. I mean, or at least the bottom of C5. So I don't know. I think it probably still needs to be worked on.
Just turn down the multiplier a little bit so you're not
Yeah, maybe
going up.
1.5.
Hmm.
I mean, because how am I almost in C4 with all 12s basically?
Yeah, that yeah, and if you're losing all of them, they added the C6, right? Like, do you have any horses that are in that class?
No, nope. I
Yeah,
hadn't, obviously, this. bugged horses. I've run a couple times since they said they were going to fix them, and they still haven't been fixed because they're still running 12th place. But they said they would announce when they fix it. But I mean, I could run them down to class 5 or class 4. Two of them, or one of them, is a knock. But that knock doesn't even belong down in C6. So why am I going to do that? You know?
Right. Right. Yeah. It's a hard balancing act because you can breed a horse and try and hopefully compete in that tournament, but if you're going to win, you're probably going to get stuck up into a high class, and if you can't down class in the current state we don't have retirement, like the horse just kind of sits around, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't really want to retire any of my horses for the most part. I breed them because I want to run them. I don't breed them to burn them.
Right. It'll be interesting to see how much. Well, we can move into the Zed token, but it'll be interesting to see how much Zed token you get when you retire a horse. Like if it makes it worthwhile to actually retire a horse.
I think people are probably overestimating what they're going to get for their horse. That's my opinion. Because why is Zed going to compensate you for having a bad horse? I just feel like people are going to overestimate what they think they're going to get for a burn.
What would you like to see, like, some of the utility of the Zed token be? Maybe like when you burn a horse, you get a free breed, or you get X amount of Zed token. Like, what are some of the tokenomics you want to see?
I just think if it becomes the currency of the market, I would love to have. What if we had a skin store? I mean, I would love to use some of my tokens and just buy a skin. Right now, everything on the market's pretty well priced. So, um, and maybe tournaments where you pay to enter,
Mm.
that kind of thing. And that kind of locks you into certain tournaments. But they can do so much with a token, right? It, I'm excited for it, but still hesitant for it moving away from WEF, because that's eventually what they want to do, right? Is move away from WEF.
And it's a scary thing because it's nice that our horses right now are kind of like little mini Ethereum miners, right? Like you can win a good amount of Ethereum, and Ethereum is valuable in the current market. Now, when we move to the Zed token, like we don't know what the value is going to be. We don't know how volatile it's going to be. So, like, does that scare you at all?
A little bit, definitely. And I think that's why they're taking their time with Republic Crypto to figure out exactly how they're going to use this token, because they don't want people to just cash it out either and dump it. We're supposed to get some for holding horses. I don't know. They can't give us too much, but then you give us too little, and it's like, what's the incentive? So it's a balancing act.
Right, because a lot of people like, and I don't blame these people either, but a lot of people were buying Zed Run horses over like a bored ape because they had, I mean, it was Dez at the time, right? But like that was the whole plan. Like you buy a Genesis horse and you'll be rewarded by a Dez airdrop, and people pass on bored apes and a bunch of other stuff that could have made them a lot of money because they
Right.
wanted the airdrop from this token.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's evolved a lot since I came on last year, and then the white paper got pulled. So it'll be interesting to see.
The white paper got pulled?
Yeah, they pulled the white paper a while ago.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, they
Oh, the
pulled that
Dez
last
wipe.
year.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha,
yeah,
gotcha,
yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah. They pulled that. Yeah. So I think once that happened, it made us all question where are we going now? Do we have a token? Are we not going to have a token? And I don't know, but we don't know what they're doing behind the scenes, right? We're always out here talking, oh, Zed's not doing anything, when they've got 5 million things going on behind the scenes and already have this roadmap made out. So
100%. Because we were all expecting the breeding update, but we never knew when it was gonna come. And then they're just like, "Hey, breeding update." What did they announce it a day before, 2 days before, and then it was out.
yeah, it was like maybe 48 hours before they opened it up. So,
How
but
did you approach breeding pre-update, and now how are you approaching it post-update?
when I first started, we thought what you bred with mattered. And I was going through breeding trees. I was on Zed Run tools and bringing all that stuff up. And I even started my blog breaking down horses, and just to find out it was all RNG basically. Like it was so random. So once I figured that out, pre update, it was like, well, whatever. I'm just gonna breed this knack gen and this knack gen together just because then I'll get a knack leg. I mean, I would still kind of look at who I was breeding with, but what came out was so random, it really didn't matter. Um, Post update, I've been trying to do breeding with intention. I'm putting distance preference with distance preference. I'm looking at the studs stats if I'm going to an outside stud. Um, Maybe, bringing variance into the equation. So I'm trying to breed more with more intention now because it's supposed to matter. Um, but then the breeding bug really had me questioning some of my breeds before they announced there was a bug because I'm like, I bred this sprinter and this sprinter, and they aren't bad. And I got this 12th place horse.
Mm.
What did I do? And it doesn't flame anywhere. In every single distance, it was 12th. So I went back to that once they opened the breeding barn last night with a stud that had one stud left, and I got a normal baby.
Mm.
Like it it flamed in some places, not in others. It had kind of a predictable finish. It's probably an A shape, but none of this random weird stuff that was going on.
Are you sticking to certain bloodlines when you breed? Like, do you only try and breed Nakamotos with Nakamotos, or do you not care? Like, you just going Buterin or whatever?
No, I have everything in my stable, so I don't discriminate. I'm not a maxi and I'm only going to breed Nax, but I'm not only going to breed Buttes. I breed everything. I haven't done any, I think I've only done one or two crossbreeds so far. So I think I've done like a Finn with a Zabo, but that's, we have so much time to just test and have fun with it. I had some breeds I had in mind to do once I found out the update was coming. So I did those, and I'm more likely to then either repeat the breeds next time to
Mm,
see if I get the same results, especially if they were decent. Otherwise, I'll just maybe play around more with some of them.
that makes sense. What is the best horse you've bred? Either just in general, what's the best horse you've bred?
Oh, geez. I'm not known for having monster horses. If I can have a horse that can be somewhat competitive, the one horse that's decent that I bred was actually right before the update, and it's a Z3 exclusive knock. And she's in paid. She's not doing bad. She can flame in C1 paid. So she's probably the best one prior to the update and post update. Um, I think I have a Zabo exclusive. No, yeah, Zabo exclusive that's doing okay. I haven't tried him in paid. He's not up to C1 yet. My bar for like Knox is basically once they get to C1, do they flame?
Mm.
And if they do, can they do anything in paid racing? So,
What are your future plans with the filly? Are you gonna go try and hit her with a Z1, or hit her with a distance preference, a variance horse? Like, what is your plan there?
oh, the Z3 that I had bred, yeah, I'm probably gonna try and put her with another Z1. So, try and keep that base ability.
Yeah, 100%.
And she's a marathoner, yeah. So I'm probably gonna try and find a marathoner.
It's it's interesting to see, like, if it's like some people value distance preference, some people value base ability, some people value variance. Like, if you had to pick one, which one would you have as a trait?
Oh, probably base ability, then distance preference. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, if you have strong base ability, even if she ended up the offspring can't run, maybe we'll end up being able to pass on some of that high base ability. So
Right.
you always racers in this game are few and far between when you actually look at the 400,000 horses that we have, right? So if you're not breeding a racer, you're hoping you get a breeder.
Hmm.
Something to pass that down to try again.
100%. That was my strategy with going. Like as an entry point, I went Z2 knock leg, and I was like, well, if it's not a racer, it at least should have some base ability from those Z1s to pull down and breed into some other horses.
Right. Yep. Yeah, you started high, I started low. I did butte leg, you did knock leg. But the concept is the same, especially if you can't afford a Genesis at that level. The legendaries were the best bets after that, right?
A
So
100%. 100%. I just looked at it like, okay, these are the ones introduced to the game. If you had Serena Williams and LeBron James, what kind of baby would you get? So
right.
it worked out on the first one. On the second one, it didn't really work out, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Have you bred diamonds since the update?
Yes, and it's interesting because like they're decent. So I bred two horses. I bred a horse named Thanks for Coming and Chocolates. Thanks for Coming looks like it has some variance passed down, so it's interesting to see if that's. I mean, I'll have to do it more than these two horses to see if variance is continuously passed down. But I bred Chocolates, which we entered in a $25 race yesterday on stream, and it flamed, and it's like flaming in C2. So I'm like, maybe some base abilities getting passed down or something.
Well, in a $25 race, yeah, because those are all competitive horses. That's not glue entering a $25 race.
Right.
So that's definitely a good sign.
I was excited when I saw it. I was like, we got flames. We lost the race, but I was like, we got flames. Let's go.
That's, hey, you're not going to win them all anyway. So if you don't start out with a banger, it doesn't mean you're not going to be competitive.
Exactly. So you touched on you started a blog. What made you want to do that?
Um, this was, I think, July of last year, and I've taken a step back just because breeding wasn't making any sense and Zed was kind of in flux. But at the time, I really wanted to break down horses, and I went through their family trees, and this is where this blood may be coming from. A lot of You wouldn't believe how many Butte elites actually have Z1 blood or Breathless Edge back in their family tree. So it's like, did it come from this and blah, blah, blah. Maybe now maybe those blogs and those family trees will be relevant again,
Hmm.
going back. And then we had a lot of things going on, like we got funding from Anderson Horowitz. We had the Stella Artois partnerships. So it was just kind of trying to break down things for the community because not everybody likes to read a whole article. And I was just trying to keep it shorter and sweeter and then ask some questions and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Were you Twitch streaming at this time as well?
No, I didn't start Twitch streaming till really in earnest, maybe a month and a half ago. The technology side of it just was daunting. I mean, we've talked about that a few times. Um, and it's all self-taught. So I'm on YouTube looking all the time. How do I do this? How do I do that? Just trying to teach myself. It's not like it comes with a manual.
Right. Right. What were some of the difficulties you ran into just trying to even get started to stream on Twitch?
um, First of all, there's so much software. There's so many different things you can use: OBS, StreamYard, just whatever. Streamlabs OBS. I'm like, what the hell's the difference between that and just OBS? So,
Right.
I mean, nothing is simple in this world. And then my audio wouldn't work, my camera wouldn't work. I bought a microphone, I bought a camera, I bought two monitors. It just, well, how do I get one monitor to work with another monitor? I've never had more than one monitor before. So it's just growing pains, and I'm not a techie, but I love it. I love talking to people and racing and helping new people. I enjoy it a lot. And since nobody in my family knows what I do and I can't talk to them about it, at
Right.
least Zed is my Zed family. So
it validates like that you're not crazy, because there's other people that have that same Zed Run bug. They're like, okay, I'm not crazy. Other people love this game just as much as I do.
Yes, 100%. People get excited when you end up with a super coat in this world.
100%. Or even a failed super coat, because then there was a theory that it might be a racer, right?
Right, right. Yep.
So rewind 2 years. Did you ever see yourself being a Twitch streamer or doing any of this stuff?
Hell no. I have been a nurse for 15 years. That's what I've done. And I've been burnt out for a lot of it. And COVID just kind of opened up a lot of doors for people to work from home. And it changed the way I thought about things as well. And it's like, what can I do from home and get away from being a bedside nurse? But 2 years ago, never would have thought of that. This last year, I've been able to think about that. So,
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, because I had that same kind of, like, I don't like, it's just an, I don't know what to call it, like an inflection point or whatever. Like when COVID happened, you saw like people could work from home, you can work for yourself, and there's no, I said it yesterday on stream, but there's no rooftop to what you can do. Like you could have a viral video, you can sell merch, you can do a bunch of different stuff. Like when you work a 9 to 5, you're kind of limited to whatever your boss is willing to pay you. You can do as much work as you want, but it doesn't mean your value would go up. You can put in as much work as you want, content creation, and there's the sky's the limit.
yeah. I mean, COVID, I call it, it was a pivot point for a lot of people. They could, they realized that they had intrinsic value. You didn't need somebody telling you what to do and underpaying you. And you could take your creativity or your skills and you could market those and be your own boss, like you say. And it just, yeah, I think it was a pivoting point for a lot of people.
Right. Yeah, it's I agree. Like looking back, it's because I'm with you. Like I would have never saw myself being a content creator. I was always like so like self critical or whatever. Like I didn't want people to judge me, right? Once you get over that point, you just kind of put the
Yeah.
camera on yourself, and you do it more and you get used to it, it becomes easier, and you're like, I don't care if anybody judge me. If people want to watch me, they
Yeah.
want to watch me.
Yeah. My attitude has changed a lot. It's instead of worrying about what everybody else thinks and what everybody else is doing, I just worry about myself now. And if I'm having fun and I don't care if my hair looks like shit on stream and everybody else is having fun, that's all that matters at the end of the day, right? I didn't ever see myself as a content creator, but I found I have a voice and I do have something to say. Now, does everybody want to hear it? No, but that's okay.
Right. Yeah. I think I don't know what it's called. I think it's like the laws of third. Like, 1/3 of people will like you, 1/3 of people won't, and then 1/3 of people won't care. But it's just like
Right?
it is what it is. You
Yeah.
play to your audience, right?
Yep. And this life is too short now. I think more people than not realize that. So,
100%. So
yeah.
if you were starting today in Zed Run, knowing everything that you know, I gave you half an ETH. How would you start a stable in this game?
Half an ETH. Hmm. Well, that's not enough to buy two Z7s. I would definitely buy Genesis though. Probably then I would probably get a Z7 mare. At least I can breed an offspring and go from there. That's what I would do.
And you don't get
Uh,
hit by the breeding decay, so you're good on
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So then I would just try and start my own little stable like I did way back then.
Because it gets out of hand really quick. Like I started with 2 horses and now I got 20 something, because once you start breeding, it's just exponential growth, right? Then you got a whole stable of horses that you might have to start a jockey club to even to get them continuously on the track.
Yeah. I have 150 horses and I don't even breed all my horses. And I don't run. I run maybe a third of them, maybe. But now I want to breed all the time now with the updates.
Right. That's
I
good.
wouldn't, yeah, I would consider a jockey program once I had my horses nailed down that were competitive, because I don't want to give a jockey a horse that they're going to waste their time on. I don't want to waste their time. I'm not going to waste my time. I don't think that's fair to either of us. And I'm waiting for the contracts to come out for the lending.
Mm,
Once it, I love people that trust other people. People have trusted me to jockey their horses, but I don't want to let a horse leave my barn. I just can't, not until I have it so that they can't run off with it.
right, 100%. And we've seen like if I think I touched on this maybe in another interview, but with Axie Infinity, Peg Axie, or even like D Race, how big the renting aspect is. Like, there's a lot of people. If you go look on those games, like their mentions on Twitter, or people responding, it's not even people responding about like fixed breeding or fixed racing. It's like, hey, can I have a scholarship? Hey, can I race your horses? Hey, can I do this? And it
Yeah.
opens up for like an avenue for people in other countries to make a serious living just renting horses and racing them.
Yeah. Last year was the first exposure I had to Axie. I don't have an Axie team. I had thought about it, but that was right at the time they made some changes. But I saw Catch Me Ryan Derby putting out, tweets. I'm looking for scholars. And I'm like, what's a scholar? And he'd get 100 replies from people, mostly, in the Philippines and those areas, asking for basically a job is what it is for them. And I foresee the same thing with the Zed once we get going, right? I know we're still in beta and everybody hates that word, but we're just not quite there yet. But if they make a token that won't collapse, this could be bigger than Axie, right?
100%, because we've already seen how big it is. Like you were saying, if the product is well and the tokenomics are good, then once they implement the aspect that we already know has a massive audience waiting for it, like I think wrap it up. I think we're all gonna make
Yeah.
some decent money from here.
And talk about VC funding then, and partnerships. I mean, that could be a lot of money for Zed. And obviously that trickles down. More tournaments, more this, more that.
What is your favorite Zed Run partnership?
Probably Stella. To me, Stella Artois was kind of the first good marriage of a partnership. Like this, their branding, our branding, kind of the just happy-go-lucky family vibe. Though the Stella's very much about family
Mm.
in their branding, and I felt it was just a great marriage between the two.
Yeah, and it's mutually beneficial because now when I go to 7-Eleven or something, I see a Stella Artois. I'm probably not gonna buy one, but I'll be like, "Hey, mom, Zed Runs. They got a partnership with Stella Artois," and she's like, "Oh, that's cool." It just legitimizes it a little bit more in her mind.
Right. Like I wish we had seen more things from the NASCAR partnership. That one kind of fell flat, in my opinion. And then Atari, we're supposed to have stuff coming in the future still from that Atari partnership. But everything moves at such a slow pace in this world. It's slow, but it's fast. I guess it's hard to explain.
It's like dog years.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Because like, go back 1 year from today, we had odds. We had what, the 8 hour till your race field. You could race as much as you want. We didn't have tournaments. Like, a lot has changed in a very short amount of time.
yeah, yep. And even before that, a lot has changed since inception. I mean, you've probably had King Beaver shot on, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure, and he's the first one to tell you it was just a pretty thing you looked at. It had no utility, and now look at where we're at.
Yeah,
So
it's pretty amazing that guys like Lucky Jacks and King Beaver shot, they acquired massive amounts of pictures of horses before you could even race them.
yeah, yeah. Patty Jack Harley, or Patty Jack. There's a lot of the old school people, Kazan stables. A lot of those guys took a leap of faith, you know.
So where do you see Zed Run? Let's say, I asked Chicago Stables 5 years, but I still think that that's even too long out. So let's say 2 years. Where do you see Zed Run 2 years from now?
2 years from now, if everything goes the way I would hope it goes, and probably they hope it goes, probably big partnerships. I mean, everybody's clamoring to get into the NFT space, right? These these big companies, and they I don't even know half of them know what the hell they're doing or what they're talking about. They're hiring people, they're buying a Bored Ape, and they're saying, "Look at me," and oh, we're gonna have this NFT that you can have Chick-fil-A for a week. I mean, but I see big partnerships down the road once those huge companies get a firmer foothold in this space and catch up, you know?
Mm-hmm. That would be
So,
big time. And hopefully
yeah,
betting, because we know that that's gonna be like just like gas to the fire that is Zed Run.
it would be, but they're an Australian company and they have all those regulatory things. I don't know. I don't know if that would even be a year or two down the road or maybe longer. I don't know if they can be bet on in Vegas if they're an Australian company. I don't know if that's
Mm.
legal. I don't know the ramifications, but I can tell you right now, people would bet on it in
Yeah.
Vegas if it was available. So,
Because they got like the little. I went to Vegas like last year and they had like a little horse racing game but it's on a table, right? So like if you just put it up on a screen, these nice, cool looking color horses, you could just bet on your favorite color or bet on your favorite name and then just work from there. But that does make sense that they're not a U.S. company, so they might have to maybe make like because Binance has like a Binance U.S. division, right? To then
yeah,
where we can use Binance. It'll be interesting to see if they have to do something like that.
right. And then do we get into state regulations and just, I don't know. I think that's a whole Pandora's box.
100%. Are you excited or nervous about surface preference?
I'm indifferent, really. Um, I have my horses tuned up as much as I can with what I know about them right now. Surface preference is really just six different options. I already know what distance my horses are good at. So I'm just going to put them in a surface preference at that distance. And whichever one they finally flame at or place at consistently, maybe over 5 to 10 races, is just where they're going to run. So I mean, it's not like we have to guess if that track is going to be elastic. They're going to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
So once I dial in my horses, I just think it's another layer, but I don't think it's going to be a barrier.
Right.
Not at all.
I think I'm kind of with you. It's like another layer, and then you add on like more of a game of skills, so they don't get into the gambling side and get regulated and all that stuff. You can say no. This is a game of skill. There's surface preference. You can study the field. You can do all this different stuff to make it to where it looks like a game of skill.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see if surface preference will end up being like we have down distances. Will we have a down surface preference?
Mm.
You know, I'm sure there's always ways to game the game, right?
Right.
So, just because my horse finishes first all the time or whatever in a hard surface, if I put them in elastic, will they down?
Mm.
It just will be an interesting thing to see. I don't know what percentage of the makeup of importance that is. Is surface preference a 50% factor in your horse's ability to win, place, or show, or is it a 5% factor?
That's a great
So
point. That is a great point. I didn't even think of that, but that makes so much sense.
it just depends on how much it's in the algorithm, how much it matters.
Yeah, and hopefully they get it right, right? Because
Well,
did you
if not,
expect to have a bug in the breeding update?
um, I did not expect it to 100% work right off the bat because nothing I think they've ever implemented has ever worked 100% off the bat. And that's not a dig on Zed. That's just the nature of where we're at in blockchain gaming, right? We're pioneers. We aren't following anybody. For the most part, everybody is following us. I was not expecting the bug that they announced because, first of all, Genesis aren't supposed to have decay
Mm.
applied to them, period. So for like offspring of Taco Tuesday, who has like 100 babies, to be coming out with 12th all the time. It was kind of weird that somehow ended up being coded that decay applied to them along with all the other horses. So
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, but at least they're rectifying it. We don't have a great reset where every horse is gonna get reset from here. Like we're good. The market is still good. We'll see how
yeah,
they rectify those horses. Like, what do you think they're gonna do for the horses that were bought but had that decay factor into them?
there's nothing to do, right? I mean, they're going to put the horse back to what it should have been originally, which I would assume they're all going to be better because decay doesn't make a horse better, it makes it worse.
Hmm.
So to me, there's no compensation that needs to be given out. I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I had a horse that I bred. It was a Z3 knack exclusive, and he was shit. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? So I sold him for less than what I paid for the breed just to recoup some of my breed fees because I was breeding like a fiend. And now it turns out, he's probably not as bad as I thought because looking at the stallion had like 40 offspring.
Hmm.
So decay probably applied to him. So he came out decayed or whatever you want to
Right.
call it. Do I expect compensation for those actions? No, that's 100% on me. Did I know my horse was bugged? No, but at the end of the day, I'm responsible for myself.
Right.
So
It's a good attitude to have, though.
yeah, I'm still looking at the horse though. It's back for sale on OpenSea. I'll have to pay more than I sold it for, but I'm like, do I buy that horse back?
Just gonna
So
keep tabs on it just to see how it
I
does when I
am.
fix it.
I am. So, because how often do you get to breed with a Z1 at Min? And that's what I did. I was like, hmm.
Was it a snipe or was it just any Z1 that was in there at minimum?
It was just a Z1 that was in there at Min. It wasn't anything like, wasn't RSB or anything crazy. It was just the first night breeding opened, and I think everybody under the sun was hitting all the Z1s at Min, including me.
Yeah.
So,
I was
yeah.
looking at him. I was looking at him. But I was waiting for a snipe. I was waiting for a name I knew of to pop up and just. Psh. So
Right. Yeah, I hear you.
last couple questions for you, chat. If you guys got any questions for Lacy, shoot them in chat. But my last few questions for you: if you had the keys to Zed Run, you could change one thing right now. What would you change and why?
Comms. I would change comms. I think that Zed relies on their community managers a lot, and they also don't disseminate information very well across more than just Discord, really. Like, I know the breeding barn was shut down, but I don't remember getting an email saying the breeding barn was shut
Mm,
down. And unless you're in Discord, if I go to breed a horse, all it says up there is stud barn closed. I feel like comms could still use a lot of improvement. Um, Zed's very disjointed as it is because a lot of people work from home. It's not the typical office environment. There's so many different departments. I don't think they communicate very well with each other all the time. If they could figure out how to have just one lead comms person to do all that, I would definitely change comms. And that's probably not the kind of answer people expect, but comms is important, right?
very.
I mean, we're for 24 hours, we're like, what's going on? We're all in Zed General, with conspiracy theories. And it's not FUD. It's just what's going on. Well, my horse is shit. Well, so is mine. Some of that could have been stopped just after them coming on for after like 2 hours on the job and saying, hey, yo, this is what's not working. We're going to fix it. Boom. End of story. Send out an email, send out a tweet, put it in Discord, put it on Instagram. They're on Facebook. Mass comms. When you and I advertise, we're going live. Well, I don't just wait and hope Twitch sends out a notification. We're tweeting about it. We're doing this, we're doing that. I mean, it's the same concept. you have to cover all your social media bases. So anyway,
100%. And we've seen how like even John Lee. Imagine if we didn't have John Lee responding and like doing what he does on Twitter. Like, what state would we be in right now? It would just be pandemonium.
yes, 100%. Because he takes the time to answer questions when most don't. And he gives thought out and fleshed out answers, not just did you clear a cache? You know, I mean he get drops maybe not alpha, but he definitely goes into detail in his responses.
100%. And it's nice to see because you like you said it. They're pioneering this whole space, and some people have a very large investment. Even if you have a small investment, your investment is your investment, and it's easy to get fearful of this game, like fearful of what the future is going to be when there's bugs and all these changes going on. So just saying like, hey, this is what's happening, this is what happened, and if they're just upfront and direct about it, it eases those nerves a lot.
Yeah, and especially if you're new, you don't know that that's just status quo for Zed. You think, oh my God, I just bought this $500 horse and now this is bugged. And am I going to get rugged because I heard my best friend got bought this bored panda and they got, I mean, so many people are new, period, in this space. They have to speak to everyone, across all levels, whether you're $1 million investor or somebody that's in there for $500, which is everything to some people.
Exactly.
So, and don't come for me, but I don't care if you've spent $500 and it's a lot for you. Don't tell people they shouldn't be here then.
Mm,
That is like my biggest pet peeve. Don't tell people how to spend their $100 or that they shouldn't be here then if that's a big risk for them.
right.
You know, risk is relative and people are entitled to invest the way they want.
Right.
So,
Everybody's in a different situation.
yeah, I'll be the first one to jump on people because I'm a champion of small stables, but that's that's that.
Fair. If you could own one horse that you don't own, what horse and why?
um God. I mean, I know the first one that jumps to mind, but it's not exactly probably for the reasons I would want if I step back. I mean, the first horse that jumps to mind is Ready Set Boom, right? That's like the pinnacle horse right now. It can run. It's a killer breeder. Hopefully, we'll see how those Ready Set Boom babies get reset.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's winning championships and calls from Larry Colmus, and just it's a good horse, right? It's a money printer. Um, and it's a Z1. It'll have intrinsic value down the road. It's just everything. But I don't know. There's so many other good horses out there for different reasons, though. You know.
Ready Set Boom's a good choice. I think Chicago said the same thing. So we're
Oh, did he
two
really?
two on two for Ready Set Boom. It's all good though.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe that's just because that's the state of where we're at right now. You know, down the road, if you ask me in a year, maybe there's a horse that's even better out there that just sets different examples and then just appeals on a different basis. I don't know. But yeah, I guess that's my answer right now.
That's a good choice. What does the future of content creation look like for you?
um, I'd like to do more onboarding. Like when I first started out my Twitch, it was like a little sketchy with StreamYard and laggy, and it was hard sometimes to make decent videos on there. But I did some onboarding videos when the mating came out because some people didn't even know how to breed a horse.
Mm,
So I'd like to do more onboarding stuff and maybe put it on YouTube because some people you can tell them how to do it and some people just need to see it done. And if we're going to be ramping up in quarter 3 and trying to bring in all these new people, I think the content needs to be out there
right.
because Zed only puts out a fraction of that information, right? The community drives a lot of it.
100%. And especially if there's an influx of new players, there will be a market for someone to onboard people. So that's a great lane to take.
Yeah. I mean, there's a market for a lot of us, right?
Right.
Because some people like Zed Chateau does that, and some people, he's got like this Bob Ross vibe, right? I mean, he's totally chill and like a hippie in a way. So I love Zed Chateau, but I'm a woman and I have a lot of females approach me about onboarding. So I some women just feel more comfortable with women. So I think there's a space for a lot of people.
100%. Where can people watch you at, and where can people follow you at?
Oh, I'm on Lacy After Dark on Twitch, and I'll be streaming tonight in about 5 hours. And then on Twitter, I'm Lacy After Dark, which is at Racing Glue.
Was Glue Racing
Because
taken?
yeah, it was yeah, something like that was taken, and so I'm at Racing Glue.
Okay,
Yep.
just flipped it around. It's
Yeah.
same difference.
Yeah, it worked for me.
Was there anything I didn't touch on that you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm very bullish still on Zed. We're always going to have our ups and downs. People just have to remember or understand where we've come from to understand where we are now. And I think a lot of new people don't understand the history. And if we could put that history somewhere, I think we'd have a lot more people stay that come in, go, this isn't for me, and they leave. So, yeah.
It's a good point. I think we're definitely gonna make it. Like, what other game is having $20,000 prize pool tournaments for free races? Right? There's always a 20K single that's
Daily.
daily, exactly daily. So even if the game isn't in its best system or exactly like we want it to, there's still money to be made in the game, even if you just own one horse and you want to race it in freeze.
Yep. And
So
then, people that are only able to do stuff on the weekend, this is still perfect for them. They can still run tournaments, they can still have a good time. We get party mode. I mean, people will be doing their, instead of Friday night poker night, they can do Friday night race night, that kind of stuff. It just, we're going to go places. You just got to be patient.
exactly. That's hard in this space, though.
It is. It is.
Do you have any questions for me?
I don't think so. I think I asked you some. So
That was
I
good.
appreciate you.
No problem. I appreciate you as well. Thank you for coming on, and have a good day.
Thanks. You too.
Have a good one.
Bye.
All right, guys. That was Lacy from Glue Racing. I appreciate you guys for tuning in as always. That was fun. You guys go follow Lacy on Twitch and Twitter. Lacy After Dark on Twitch and Racing Glue on Twitter. Tremendous show today, Lacy. Appreciate you, Jeff. Travis says Margarita Friday is the closest thing we have to party. That is party mode, man. Thanks, Lacy. Yep. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Dan. No problem, Jeff. Automatic. Appreciate you, my man. All right, guys. Bot lady, appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow with some solo streaming, whatever we're gonna do tomorrow. We'll hang out, have a good time, race chocolates, and thanks for coming. Then we'll be back on whatchamacallit, Friday with CJ. And that'll be a wrap for this week. And then we'll be back next week with some more episodes. So until next time, I appreciate you guys tuned in. If you guys stayed for this long, just drop a like button for your boy. And I'll see you next time. Peace.